Hi everyone, I'm Denise Gummer-Hutchison and I'm with Wisconsin Public Education Network. I'm the Northeast Regional Organizer up out of the Green Bay area. And this is Asmik. What do we say?
That is totally okay. It's like the letter S, soft S, S, and then Esma.
Esma.
Yes.
And Esma is with Public Schools Strong, which is a partner of Wisconsin Public Education Network. We're working together on issues all across the country. So we're going to go from a big picture of what's happening nationally and how it rolls into Wisconsin. And remember that in Wisconsin, we have been fighting vouchers the longest, over 30 years. And so it's going to, but yet we're going to see some actions that are happening that can help you organize within your community. So we hope you walk away with some organizing ideas and with understanding how we can make good things happen in the state of Wisconsin for public education. So I'm going to let you go ahead and start.
Thank you.
And welcome to Wisconsin. We're glad you're here.
I'm honored. Thank you so much for inviting me. So my name is Esma Al-Hini again. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I'm one of the lead national organizers with Race Forward's Heal Together campaign. And I'm just going to say I have 20 years experience organizing, just for y'all to know. And I'm just going to go ahead and start because we have so much to cover, and I want to make sure we're able to share this information with y'all. All right. So this is just a picture of last September, I believe, where all of our groups from across the country came together, and this is our Public School Strong t-shirts. Some of y'all are in here.
And we were one of the groups there,
Yeah.
Wisconsin Public Education.
Do you know any? Can you see any of?
Heather was there.
Okay.
I know.
Okay. It's hard to even find myself. I'm in the middle there in the front because I can't wear short sleeves. You can see I have that. All right. So basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom out and kind of give you some context on what's going on with our public schools. Just so that you know that what you are seeing and feeling isn't just exclusive to Wisconsin. This is actually very much a part of a greater plan to dismantle public education. So we're going to be talking about what that looks like on a national level, and then we're going to be talking about who's behind it, and then we're going to be talking about what some of our groups are doing about it. All right, so dismantling, there's an intentional effort to dismantle public education, and we want to share what that looks like. So these are the different ways they're trying to dismantle public education, and there's more ways as well, but these are just a few so that when you see them, you know, oh, this is one of those strategies they're using to dismantle public education. And as I did yesterday, how many people saw my presentation yesterday? Oh my God, okay, I was just saying, if you did, you're gonna memorize this, and that's okay, then you can give this presentation. But if these things are some of the things you all are seeing, just raise your hands, okay? All right, so severe and pervasive underfunding, attacks on teachers and teachers' unions, school vouchers and charters, teaching to the test, school closures, school board takeovers, Moms for Liberty, and the likes. By the way, Moms for Liberty is like now going under different names because they know people know them. So they're policing in schools and school to prison pipeline, school segregation, attacks on Black and brown people, and also our LGBTQIA siblings. Attacks on CRT. I'm going to add attacks on our trans siblings as well. Sorry, we didn't have that there. Attacks on CRT in our schools, right? We've seen that. And the lack of social emotional supports for students. All right, these are all different ways public school is being attacked. We want to share that all of this is really just a means to a particular end, and that particular end is privatization. We wanted to give a meaning for privatization. So the meaning that we want to give is the transfer of business, industry, service from public ownership by the public, us, right? We elect school boards, etc., to hold our schools accountable, to private ownership, giving it to private individuals to own our schools, giving it to private organizations to own our schools, giving it to private groups to own our students, right? And oftentimes without accountability, right? And the other means to an end is a religious perspective, and oftentimes a conservative Christian perspective, worldview, and they're not exclusive. They do work hand in hand. All right. We wanted to share that the most aggressive form of privatization efforts in the country, and we see privatization efforts in different areas too, but the most aggressive form is in school vouchers. And school vouchers are actually tapping into our public tax dollars from the pool of public school money, and they're funneling that into private schools, right? Predominantly religious schools, and we'll talk a little bit about that. We wanted to share that if you do not know, private schools do not have to comply with state accreditation laws. They do not have to comply with state curriculum standards. They do not have to comply with anti-discrimination laws. In fact, we talked about most of the schools being religious schools. If they declare religion as why they can discriminate, they're actually allowed to discriminate. So it's really harmful to our LGBTQIA siblings, etc. Yes.
Hey, I came in late, so you might already said this, but is it okay if we take a photo of your slide set?
Absolutely.
Okay, so
Absolutely.
I just wanted to double check.
Yeah,
So
absolutely,
So
because
We're also recording this.
oh, great.
And
Yeah.
so that will be available as well.
Sweet. Thank you.
and this is all about knowledge sharing, so take everything I said, it's not stealing, it's like sharing. We want everyone to know this is happening, what's happening, people to get educated so that we are on the same page and we're really fighting for strong public schools. And also, no teacher qualification standards. They do not have to have certified teachers in private schools. Some do, but they do not have to, and a lot of them don't. When we're talking about the market and we're talking about capitalism, what happens, we try to cut corners, we try to save money, so that's why we see hiring of uncertified teachers. No background checks or fingerprinting, right? No reporting on student demographics, no reporting on student outcomes, no reporting on disciplinary incidents, no building safety and security codes. All of these things do not have to be in place in private schools. And then I want to go over some of the history of vouchers. The history is really rooted in racism and segregation academies. In 1959, Prince Edward County, Virginia, shut down all their public schools. Why? Because of Brown versus Board. They did not want to be in compliance. They did not want to desegregate schools. And so how did they keep segregation? They shut down all their schools, and they created the voucher program, where they actually gave parents vouchers to send their child to segregated private schools. And then by 1970, we see 200 of these private schools in place. And then fast forward, we know the Supreme Court has shut this down, but in reality, we want to say this is very much alive and well and happening today still. There is an effort, and we heard Trump say this. This is not partisan, I'm just sharing. Trump just said this, yes. That he said that school choice is a civil rights issue. This is just like the most absurd thing ever. So I just want to say that private schools are not helpful to BIPOC, because what's actually happening is we're actually robbing our public schools of the possibility of being better for our students, right? And so we have tried and true methods that we know work for students, and why aren't we implementing those versus knowing that the research has shown both vouchers and charters have not lived up to their promise, right? They have done either equal or worse than public schools. So why do we keep trying for this particular thing when we know there are methods like smaller classrooms, right, for students, like culturally responsive curriculum where students can see themselves, right, in curriculum. And so there are tried and true methods, and that's what we should be concentrating on. And so all that, when people say, oh, it's a civil rights issue, the civil rights issue, we need to make our public schools better. We're not here to say they're great, but we're here to say they can be great. And we have to live up to the promise of democracy, and schools are where that's done, public schools. Just for you all to know, the majority of people that get vouchers are people whose children have never attended public schools. We're literally footing the bill of these families who are already paying, okay? So people need to know that. You see 75% of vouchers in Wisconsin, which is relevant to you all, right? Never attended a public school, their child, in their life, right? And then we see the people that receive vouchers are actually earning over $200,000 a year. This is yes.
Important point too is in 2026, the caps come off in Wisconsin. So in 2026, no matter your income, you will be able to secure a voucher.
Is that, I thought that caps were just that it opens up the enrollment.
It takes off the salary, income caps.
So it's really interesting because what we learned,
It's a percentage of income, it's a percentage of poverty level.
It's a poverty level,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Right now it is.
Right, and
But-
then it comes off.
But the 26, also the enrollment caps, because
Right.
of the district, you could only, now it's like an 8%.
Right.
Yeah.
But the
Right.
caps fall off in
Yes.
26,
Yeah.
those
So
caps as well.
both of those are the caps.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
I
So
didn't
the
realize that.
number of kids that can go out to private schools comes off, and the number of kids, the kids' income in their households comes off
yeah, we
in
have a
2026.
particular interest in Wisconsin because Wisconsin was the first state to try to implement vouchers based off of helping those in poverty.
Right.
Really interesting that it hasn't lived up to its promise. Yet I'm visiting your state and yet I'm seeing all these voucher programs trying to expand vouchers, which makes no sense, and why I'm honored to be here in this fight with you all, supporting you all. So thank you for all your work.
Can you clarify something though? As far as I understand, the taxes that we pay, we are paying regular taxes and then we are paying voucher taxes in a sense, right?
No, they levy what happens is they take it out of the public schools, and then the school districts are allowed to levy to recap that.
Recouped.
Yeah.
So let me,
But
let me see if I can explain it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Please.
Oh, absolutely.
So, like for, I'll use Green Bay as an example, because I know it well, that's where I live.
Okay.
So $13 million is going out for private school vouchers this next year
Okay.
in Green Bay alone.
13 billion.
Million.
Okay.
So, when they look at their levying ability, meaning how much can you charge taxpayers,
Right.
they make that decision of whether they do that tax increase, but then the state of Wisconsin DPI tells them how many vouchers are gonna be sent out. So that money comes in and then goes out. And some school districts chose not to raise their levy because they didn't think they could afford to raise their levy. So you're taxed on what is in there, but then you're potentially taxed more because if they increase the levy.
Well, that's what, I mean, I've struggled with understanding it.
Yes.
How
I think they intentionally make it
Well,
true.
I'm sure that's
Yeah.
true. I would agree with that. I thought I understood it though that we are taxed as homeowners, okay?
Right.
For school. for
Property
public-
taxes, yes.
Okay, that's where that public school money comes from there.
Right.
But, because we have been working on trying to get this other amount that is taken from families
Right.
on our tax form.
Tax
Right,
that's
that's
transparency.
what we wanna do. That's what we
So
wanna
it
do.
should, but I guess that's why I'm
It would just, if there was transparency, it would say public schools and vouchers.
Right.
It's the
Right.
same amount, but it would show you how much is going to voucher schools.
And would actually break it out to show you what percentage of your taxes
So
are
it
going
is
to
just a
private
percentage
schools.
of your taxes that are
Yeah.
Going to private
specifically going to private schools. So it's not like they're saying you owe $1,000, but now you owe
$1,500,
Right, now you owe 500, another 500 for the vouchers.
No.
They actually are saying you owe 1,500, but out of that 1,500, 500 is going to vouchers.
Yeah, so people
Right.
get mad that the public education tax is high, but they don't know that part of
Part
that
of
is
it is
going out.
going out,
Yeah.
right,
Right,
yeah, okay.
and then, one of the things on her earlier slides that was so critical is that they don't have education professionals
Right.
that are certified.
Right.
They don't have support professionals.
Right.
They also are not providing services. And, so
You have to get the
services.
services through the public education system.
Right,
Okay.
so public schools are providing the special ed services that the private schools don't have the
And how does
staff.
that get compensated? Because that doesn't get compensated then.
And that's a very
Also,
interesting piece.
and
Here
also
we go.
transportation.
Right,
The
and
the
transportation.
public district has
Has to pay
responsibility
to
to
bring those kids to
transportation
those
to their schools
schools.
if it's in the district, or
Right.
5 miles out of the district.
Right.
Okay.
So what happens is, the state of Wisconsin public schools are reimbursed at 29.5% to 33%. Depending on the district you're in,
Right,
it's how much you're actually really getting.
right.
But I can tell you that the Green Bay School District is taking $30 million out of their general fund and moving it to special education funding, because that's what they need to cover their costs
Wow.
for special
I mean,
education.
that's the other part of the
Yeah.
concern, is that, yeah.
The other belief that I have is that a lot of people don't know that once the money leaves, it doesn't come back.
Right.
So that's a really important part for the public to understand, because if there is so much money that people think they're spending, when it goes to vouchers, it doesn't come back to your public school.
Right.
So they have to ask for it again.
Because their costs don't go down. Like our little
Right.
school, we lost 11 kids. It didn't, we couldn't close the classroom, turn the lights off, fire a teacher. Our costs remain the same. All the kids didn't live on the same block, so we still have the same transportation costs. But they lose that money.
I know school districts that have had to hire additional, public school districts have had to hire additional staff to go do the IEPs
Uh-huh.
at the private schools to get the private school kids certified
Without any
to get a voucher.
compensation for that, right. But isn't it on the
Bizarre.
Monday or whatever, when?
The
October
first
day?
Friday count.
First Friday count, okay.
Yeah, but if the child is in the private school on the first Friday count, then that semester of money stays with them.
Right.
If they go back to the public school, the second semester stays with them. in the
Right.
public school. Right, I'm sorry.
So just to clarify,
Yeah.
if they go to private school and then they decide to go back to public school, that money does not follow them within that year.
Not,
No,
that
it's the semester.
That semester, that
Yeah.
semester. So that's and we have to get, like you said, all the same costs.
And some private schools have like sprint week, the week before
Yes.
the butts and seat day, so that they can get all those in there and then get the funding for that. It's kind of crooked.
The other thing that I think it's really important for people to remember is that when the money goes, and you said you still have to provide the services, when you provide the services, it's taking from what others could be receiving
Right.
in the public schools themselves. So there are different rules for public education than for those that hold the vouchers.
Right.
And so we still, in public school, have to provide those services to the individuals
The
in
mandates.
those voucher schools, if those voucher schools don't have those services and they're mandated
Uh-huh.
by federal law.
And now I'll make you all throw up. No, I shouldn't say. Please don't. No, but the reimbursement for private school vouchers for special education are 90%. The public schools get 30%.
Well, and I think we need to remember too, like for our district, we don't have any private schools in our district. So that money, our money is going to other school districts, other communities.
Across the state.
Yeah.
Every school district in the state of Wisconsin pays for the Milwaukee Public School voucher, their school choice, and also the Racine School Choice, and then the statewide school choice.
Because that's where it started.
That's where, where it all started, and the costs were spread out, because it's also the largest school district in the
Right.
state. And then now there's the independent charter costs that are, being rolled into that, which I have no qualifications, so. Anyway, yeah.
What we can do.
Yes, so let's keep going so we can get to what you
Sorry,
can do.
yeah.
I just also want to share a perspective before I go on to kind of like a timeline that I think is important. People saw my presentation yesterday and we heard all these things. We're very passionate. I'm very passionate about this as well. Just as we're talking to people who are going to private schools, people who are going to charter schools, just being very sympathetic and empathetic. Some people, like, we don't want us versus them, but just really being empathetic that they're coming from real places of, real grievances that we have to address, and a lot of it is inequity, and so we need to address those things in public schools. So as we're having these conversations, lifting up the fact that, a lot of times our public schools have failed Black and brown students, a lot of times they failed those who have disabilities, and we need to make them better. But the answer is not to remove resources from our schools that'll only make the gap greater between the have and have-nots, or rather to put into our schools to talk about the inequities, to address them, so that people, so our public schools can be stronger. So just wanted
Right.
to share that because I
That's
think that
really
is very
critical.
Yeah.
We always say everyone has a right to choose where they want to go to school, and we totally believe that. But the state of Wisconsin Constitution says that children should have equal access to a great education. And the state of Wisconsin is presently not funding that equal access to a great education. And so that's where I don't care where people send their kids to school. I mean, well, I do, but I don't. And they have a choice, and that's everybody's right. And we have to go, and you're right. It's about honoring people's choices, but not with taxpayer dollars when they're not funding what they're legislatively mandated.
Yes, and I will say this, choice schools, it's a little bit of an illusion.
Yes.
Is it really a choice? Because
Right.
the reason why parents sympathize with that is they think, oh, we have control over our lives, etc. But the fact of the matter is, it isn't more control about what over their children's education. What it actually is less control because there is no accountability. Their children can be discriminated against. There is no barriers to protect their children. So just wanting to share that is kind of like not a fair, like it's not an equal choice at all, the way they're trying to promote it. All right, so really fast, some history. We talked about the history of Brown versus Ford. And I always like to say, or Race Forward always likes to say, that whenever there's great progress in this country, we always see what? Backlash, right? So we saw when we desegregated our country, when we get rid of slavery, and we didn't get rid of it officially, it still exists in other forms. But when we made it illegal, what happened? The KKK formed, right? You see the backlash. Today we see that too. So in 2020, what happened was 300 million Americans, and actually more people all across the world, got to see a black man, George Floyd, die, murdered by police, but also Breonna Taylor, also Ahmaud Arbery, and so many others. And there was kind of a racial reckoning or awakening in this country. And we know that because Race Forward did some research and found that particular summer the word systemic racism was used more times than the past 30 years combined. So something was happening in this country. And of course, the billionaires, the oligarchy was like, oh, hell no. People get together, they won't stay in power. So like, we got to shut this down. And what did they do? They created this boogeyman called CRT. And Christopher Rufo, who was a scholar with the Heritage Foundation, basically went on this this rampage of like, oh, CRT, and they're trying to teach us to hate white people and blah, blah, blah. And long story short, he actually tweets these two quotes. I'm just going to read the bottom one real fast. The goal is to have the public read something crazy in the newspaper and immediately think critical race theory. We have decodified the term and will recodify it to annex the entire range of cultural constructions that are unpopular with Americans. So anything that we say, oh, or we're going to put it under and blame CRT, right? And so this was a particular strategy. And what's interesting was Trump takes on the call, he puts in the executive order, makes it illegal to do divisive, what's it called? Thank you, diversity and equity trainings, right? And then Biden comes in, rescinds the order, and they're not done. You think they're done? No, they're not done. So they take it to states locally, right? They couldn't get this on the executive order. They take it to states, and they try to pass all these divisive concept bills across the country, and then they took it to schools. And I think that's really important because oftentimes they take it to schools. And why is that? Why? Why do they choose schools? It's oftentimes the battleground.
Everybody's involved.
Everybody's involved in schools? Okay. What else?
Now, what you learn in school kind of shapes your worldview and how you view the world as an adult.
Yes, it shapes how we view the world, right? And we say at Race Forward that the schools, our public schools, are the bedrock of our community. They are locations where democracy can happen, right? And oftentimes that is where the experiment of true democracy happens, because I'm here to say we still haven't achieve that goal of a true democracy, but we're trying to get there, and public schools are the possibility of that, right? And then fast forward, we see Youngkin, who is this horrible man who ran, I shouldn't call him. Who is this man? Who is this man who ran for governor on parental rights? But why I said the horrible statement was because he ran on a lie. He ran on a fear, and he basically peddled the story that a trans student beat up someone in the bathroom and created all this fear around our trans siblings. And because of that, he won. Afterwards, it comes out that the story wasn't even true.
Yeah.
So it's just, and he wins. And then we see across the country the Don't Say Gay bills. Fast forward to now, you see gag orders, book bans, school takeovers, and of course the big one right now is vouchers, which they're really trying to help.
And then throw in COVID now.
Right, oh, what a
Exactly.
wonderful throw into the
Right.
mix, right?
All right, and then we created Heal Together, which is a department within Race Forward. Race Forward was in existence since 1981 to try to address racism in the U.S., right? And so after the murder of George Floyd and others, and they took it to schools, we realized they were very organized, right? And they were actually training people to go to school boards. They got their stuff together, right? And we realized we needed to make sure that we help support others across the country. And so they hired me. I'm an organizer by profession. I've been organizing for 20 years. And they also hired my co-partner, who is Anna Mercado, another national lead organizer who's been organizing many, many years, to try to support people all across the country, organize grassroots campaigns, even people who've never organized in their life, but also people who have wonderful organizations like you have, WPEN, right, to partner with them and to see how we can all support you all as well. Our theory of change is that we want to help groups organize students, educators, parents, family members, but also champion school board members to organize together for our public schools, so to create honest, equitable, and fully funded public education. All right, who's behind this? We want to pull back the curtain and let's talk about some of these people who are behind these attacks. So Julie Fencelli is heir to Publix, and she has funded Moms for Liberty. Betsy DeVos, which we all know, Trump's Secretary of Education, she is very big on trying to make sure our public schools become Christian schools. That's her big thing. She also wants to abolish the Department of Education. She has funded Moms for Liberty, Parents Defending Education, and the Independent Woman's Voice. Charles Koch, oil industry billionaire. He also is a major funder of privatization and also other social justice issues, like against social justice issues, including climate change. And he's funded Moms for Liberty, Independent Women's Forum, and he has close ties to Parents Defending Education. And then Bar Said is a billionaire that oftentimes nobody's heard of, but he's quite important. Does anybody know him here? So he's responsible for the Supreme Court judge that Trump put in place. He was the one who organized around that. So he has ties to Free to Learn Coalition. And then there's so many other billionaires all across the country who are donating. By the way, the majority of these billionaires are not donating to their own state, you know, this attack in their own state. They're actually donating to people all across the country. And so the reason why you don't name their names is because there are weak disclosure laws. But this is happening.
I mean, it's really not, you know, sometimes, I think initially, I always sort of felt that it was, the vouchers were financially, like, why do they want private schools? I mean, they're not going to make any money off of a private school, but it's really about democracy. I mean, it really
Yes, it is.
ultimately boils down
We
to
talked
that.
about people's worldview.
It's just, yeah,
Yeah.
it's just being able to control. Yes.
Okay, so how are they doing this? So basically, these billionaires are funding advocacy groups. They are funding think tanks. We talked about the Heritage Foundation. They are funding legislation. They are funding communications. They are funding litigation on both on local level, on state level, and also the federal level. Their strategy is threefold. One is a political strategy where they are funding people to get elected And then they have a legislative strategy once these people get elected to pass the policies that they are handed. And then the third is a cultural strategy, and we talked about some of that today with words like school choice to convince us that, you know, there's a viable other choice, which is not a really viable other choice that they're giving people. And so these are some of the ways that they're really peddling to destroy public education. So now we're going to talk about, sorry that sounded really gloomy and yucky, but now we're going to be bringing up the uplifting part to talk about what some people are doing across the country. We'll just use 2 examples. And by the way, I'm going to be using your example when I go to other places. So though you don't see yourselves, I've learned so much here and the work that you all are doing, and I'm like so impressed. So I will be doing PowerPoints with you all as well. So let's talk about what happened in North Carolina. In North Carolina, basically Moms for Liberty came in, as they do in all these other places, pretending to be grassroots when they're really, really not. But they came in and they were peddling this CRT, you know, LGBTQIA is being taught, and then our groups in North Carolina were like, this is so weird. Like, we've been organizing around education, and this is not what our parents are saying that they're complaining about. This is not what students are complaining about. What is this? And they're like, all right, they're getting so much media attention, we can't control the media. What do we do about it? And they're like, we're gonna have listening sessions. Yep, we're gonna sit with parents and we're gonna say, this is what parents want, and then we're gonna organize around that. And that's exactly what they did. They did that in 6 different areas in the state of North Carolina, and then started organizing around what parents actually wanted, right? Which is, could be simple things like, you know, our building is falling apart, let's get a new roof, right? Or we want culturally relevant curriculum for our students, or we want our teachers to look like the student population, et cetera, et cetera. And so, fast forward in the year 2023, the Republicans, and this is nonpartisan, just stating fact, the Republicans took over the legislature with a veto majority, and they started pushing a lot of anti-public school legislation. One of them is parental rights, the second is vouchers. And they were like, all right, it's great. We're in 6 districts, we're organizing wonderfully. Now we have to figure out a way to organize our whole state. We don't have organizers in more than 6 districts. What do? So they use, with our support, a model called distributed organizing. We're calling it, just for your sake, Public School Strong. And so what is Public School Strong? Basically, it's teams of parents, students, family members, anyone in the community, because everyone benefits from public education. Even if you have no children, you're going to benefit from public education because the people that you buy things from, that you associate with, are going to go through the school system. So everyone has a stake in public schools, right? To create teams in every single district in their state to promote strong public education. So that was the goal. And they understood that we got to leave this as simple as possible for people, right, to do. And so what does that look like? That looks like every school board, at least 3 people, go up and speak at their school board to promote strong public schools. And they do it wearing a t-shirt that says, let's see if I, Public School Strong, to unite them, right? And why is this so important? Because we really want to make sure that we demonstrate visible support for our public schools. We talked about Moms for Liberty being able to steal the spotlight. Why? Because of their sensational stories, etc. We gotta be a bit sensational for our public schools, right? We gotta wear our t-shirts, we gotta be out there, and that will garner or get the attention of the media, because we want that. We want them to see we support our public schools, and even if we're fighting for things, we want them to be better, and that's our way of support. Even criticizing our public schools is our way of support because we love them, we want them to get better. That is our show of love, we want our schools to get better. To develop new leaders, people who've never organized, we're going to give them organizing training. Y'all have WPEN here, so you'll get that, no problem. And then really creating organizing structure, political power in every district. So we want to share with you a parent, her name is Toby Hedgepath in North Carolina, never spoke at a school board meeting in her life, and this is the first time she spoke. We were so inspired by her, we wanted to share her speech with you all.
My name is Toby Hedgepath, and I'm live in Whitsett, North Carolina. My two boys attend
You all
Sedalia
here?
Elementary and Eastern Guilford Middle School, soon to be 5th and 8th graders. My husband and I are graduates of GCS as well. So I stand here today speaking through my lens as a mom of students, a prior student, and a member of Public School Strong. I've worked for almost 20 years as a human resources professional in higher education, and I appreciate the role that I have as a spokesperson for employees who aren't able or don't always feel empowered to speak up for themselves. So today I stand before you to speak up for my boys and my friends and my family who are teachers and classified workers with Guilford County Schools. I'm eternally grateful for those teachers and staff who care for my boys as they grew and found their way over the years. And especially for one of our previous custodians who was such a positive presence in the lives of my boys that they saw him as a teacher, and I never changed that for them. I became a member of Public School Strong because I wanted to be a part of the discussions happening to make the school system better and more sustainable. And it's important for me as a parent to bring solutions. And Public School Strong has given me an opportunity to understand the issues, ask questions, and be a part of solution building that helps us all. I'm extremely grateful for the collaboration and hard work of all who have been a part of these wage discussions, while knowing that there's still so much work to be done. We must stand together to push back on legislation that harms future funding of Guilford County schools, such as the voucher bill, which I'm excited to see that the Board of Education has submitted a resolution against this bill that would drain much needed funding from North Carolina schools. And I'm excited for our county commissioners to join with them and take a stand. On its surface, it sounds reasonable, but as we dig into the details of this bill, we see the dollars that could have been allocated for our community schools are now funneled into private schools that aren't a part of our communities. Our taxpayer dollars are taken from the places where we live to build up schools that have a choice of whether or not to accept our students and our children. When will we activate the lessons that we learned as children and young adults, that the grass is only greenest where we water? We can either water the lawns of our private schools, or we can water the lawns of our public schools, where our children are diverse and curious and able, and they can see representation in the faces of the teachers and the staff that stand before them each day. And finally, can we look for alternative ways of funding education? We know a few years ago that the school bond referendum passed, but the percentage sales and use tax did not. We must do a better job of communicating how these are won. This fight is exhausting, and I have not fought nearly as enough as the individuals sitting here today. No one should have to hold rallies and push for a sustainable living wage. No one should have to decide if they will pay rent or buy food. Our teachers, staff, and families supported by them should never feel like the only way to live is to leave. Thank you.
Very powerful. Very powerful testimony by Toby Hedgepath. All right, so happy to say North Carolina has 100 school counties, and Public School Strong is in 78 of the 100 counties, so it's pretty awesome. And also, needless to say, they've garnered a lot of media attention. You can see here, we talked about our theory of change with working with teachers. You can see the president of the teachers union on the right there, Kristen speaking as well, so very connected with our teachers union as we organize as well. So yeah, they got a lot of attention. I will just say also they defeated their voucher, so that's a new development in their organizing. And now Tennessee. So I want to talk about what happens in our group in Tennessee. So basically, we have a group in Tennessee called SACA. And what they were organizing around, remember, there's already groups usually in states who are organizing around education, but what they were focused on is third grade retention. They kept putting back third graders. It was incredibly unpopular, but this was in place. And then there were so many other things that were happening, right? So one of the things that happened is they were bailing out corporations, the state, right? Another very unpopular thing that was happening. The other thing that they did, what else did they do? They did not accept federal funding for their schools. Like, why would you reject money, like free money? That makes 0 sense, but that's something they did.
Everybody in this room understands that, don't we? would have Badger expansion.
Yeah, and so if you look at the middle of that screen,
Yeah.
what was happening, and the reason why I'm sharing this is because, just to share that what was happening locally and what was being passed in the legislature on the state level was completely different. There was this huge gap between what people wanted and what was actually being passed, right? And they were like, what is going, like, what connection can we make? So they realized, all right, we're gonna need to organize locally. If we organize statewide, it's just not gonna happen. We can't get people to Knoxville. We just can't. It's not gonna happen. And so they decided we're gonna need to organize locally. What do? All right, we're gonna do Public School Strong, because we told them about what North Carolina did, and they just basically built on that model. They're like, what if we pass resolutions? And I will just say what resolutions are, because somebody asked me in the last one yesterday, like, what is resolution? Resolution doesn't really have that much power, but I would say it is powerful. Because there's no like rule of law to follow it, but it's just a statement. It's just kind of like, hey, we as the people of this district don't like this, and that's powerful. So it might not be like, oh, but nothing will happen. No, but when you have enough of those statements happening, it's powerful. Why? Because when you're going up and you're trying to pass a resolution in a local district, you are educating people on how our schools get funded. Most people don't know. And I will also promise you, everyone in the legislature passing these laws that they're just handed, here, pass, go ahead and pass this, they don't understand how schools are funded either. So we're not trying to call anyone evil, right? We're trying to educate the public, right? And so what this does is educate the public, it raises awareness. And so they were very honest and they said, hey, we passed like 20 or 30 of these, and then it caught like wildfire. They didn't even need to do any of the further organizing. Like all these other districts said, hey, we want to pass that. So I want you all to imagine what you all can do. Could maybe you push for resolutions that say, hey, we need to like make sure we increase the student cap for funding for every child. You haven't done that in 4 decades, right? Or whatever you all decide you want to do to make sure that you make it clear this is what you want. In the process, you are educating people locally, right? And also you're holding those people accountable. Most people go in those ballots, those voting ballots, and they're voting for people who are actually causing this tension with that they are feeling and that they're witnessing within their local school district, and not making that connection that this person can change this situation that we're currently in, right? And also when they are given these papers to say, here's the agenda for education, go ahead and pass these things, they will think twice. They won't just pass it. They're like, you know what? I just got a lot of phone calls from, and I actually know how Thunder works now as well. I'm not gonna go by this agenda because I wanna get reelected. So that's gonna be really important. So that's the strategy they used. The topic they picked was vouchers, because they said vouchers is related to everything. It takes money away from all the things we want. So they asked their folks, what do you want? What do you dream of? Well, vouchers is taking that away from you. That's basically how they did that. Happy to say they won. Remember, again, this is not partisan. I'm just like sharing that this state has a Republican governor, Republican legislature, and they defeated vouchers. This is non-partisan issue is what I'm trying to say. Public education is for everyone. It shouldn't be a Democratic or a Republican thing. All right, so we talked about the tactics. They used Public School Strong. They did a lot of popular education, including town halls in this process. They did a lot of direct actions, and I want you to think about how your state, because being here, I've learned you all are doing a lot of these things.
Yeah, we're doing these things.
Exactly.
And that's what we can come in and help do in your local communities, is to put a lot of these things in place around a topic or an issue. But we just need to make some decisions on some.
So you already have a support system in place, which is absolutely wonderful to help you do all these things. So if you've never done these things, don't worry. WePen is going to help you do that. They've done email, phone campaigns, and then they lobbied. They had a particular strategy of lobbying their rural and suburban representatives. That was like the tactics, and they said that's the most important people to concentrate on for us, and that's exactly what they did, and that's how they won. And then making sure they got a lot of press and media, which they did get, which is another form of education, right? Let's admit, do most people go to school boards? No. So when you're going to school boards and you're speaking, the hope is that you get media attention, and then people will read about it. So that's going to be an important piece to all of this. And then a lot of our groups, including WPenn, are doing the September Surge. For WPenn's September Surge, it is, oh, you'll be hearing, you're going to be talking about that. All right. And some other people around the country are having house parties. They're doing letters to the editor. They're encouraging school boards to pass resolutions. They're hosting, I said, house parties already, having gatherings at parks, ice cream kind of parties. And so that's our goal, to have every school district in the country have public schools strong. And then just really fast explaining what that is. All you simply need to do is go to an orientation training, you'll get a t-shirt, and you're done. But if you want to continue, and you want to continue organizing, WPenn is going to help you develop leadership roles, right? And so these are the different leadership roles that are in place. You can be a note taker, and you report back what you see on a regular basis. This is the form. Basically, who said what, who was present, just all of that, keeping tabs on that. This is going to help you because elections are coming up, and you need to know who you need to remove, etc. And then another role is Facebook moderator. Another role is recruiting other people to come speak at the school board. Another role is actually being an organizer with WPenn around school, Public School Strong. Another is being the local district control shift moderator. So basically, we have this app where people stay in communication with each other. And let's see if I can show you that real fast. This is it. So basically, when you create a team, you'll be a part of this application called Control Shift, or Public School Strong team. You put in a zip code. If there is a team, they'll connect you to the team. And this is where y'all can communicate. Hey, I have an event this time, or I have a school board meeting. Come to my school board meeting. And so this is a way that people connect within your state, and WPenn will actually, you be the administrator of this for your state. So you'll also be getting from them, hey, we want you all to come out to this or that. So that's what's amazing about this as well. And then we have trainings. And so the good thing is you already have training with WPenn, but also we also offer public school training. And I know you all share our trainings as well. How to speak if you've never spoken before, how to be a Facebook moderator, organizing training for those who've never had organizing training, education events, community practice monthly meetings to talk about what's worked, what hasn't, and then self-directed trainings as well. And then if you want to get involved, this is what we're asking you to do. Pull out your phone, and with this QR code, just fill out the form, and then you will be sent basically an invite to attend the next orientation training. So that's that. And then last but not least is we have this wonderful book club with Jennifer Berkshire, who is here with her books.
You're going to hear her speak today.
So if you want to get involved with that, definitely go on that QR code. But I'll put this back, and I'll hand it off to Denise, who will talk about what y'all are doing locally.
I also wanted to tell you with regards to Jennifer Berkshire is if you want to get her book, that we have some, she's signing books, and they're up in the area of the front area of the event. So think back to one of the first slides that we saw. And what was important about that slide was every single issue that was talked about undermining public education is happening in Wisconsin. 16 years of not receiving a cost of living increase. What does that mean? I get PTSD every time I even think about this, but Act 10. What did that do? It sent public school education professionals running for other states because they had to make a living. No requirements by private schools as far as standards. So all of these values that were critical, we have people that we have police in some of our schools. We have all of these different things, teaching to the test. School closures, although That one's challenging because in many of our schools across the state, we're having to close buildings. But it's not a school closure, it's a building closure. It's a consolidation of buildings and things like that. So what have we done? Well, Wisconsin Public Education Network has been in place this is our 10th summit, and we were in place a couple of years prior to that as well. And we have spent a number of years helping to get to 33% for special ed reimbursement. We came in the last budget and said 65%. We got to 33. We keep talking about ELL because the state of Wisconsin is the lowest on ELL reimbursement and funding. But when the state of Wisconsin is sitting on $3 billion, and what could they have done? They could have funded every single public school district in the state of Wisconsin and created more equity and equality across the state. And they chose not to do that. So we have testified at every joint finance. So when you saw that woman testifying, we do trainings. So we're going to put a whole plan in place that we're calling it from the ballot box to the budget. And so we're going to keep moving people through. And one of the big programs that we're doing is vouchers. So we're already, and this is where you can organize around vouchers. I was so impressed with what they did in Tennessee because very passionate people got involved, and that's what it takes in your communities. But what do we have to do before we even do vouchers? We have to fund our public schools. And that's where the real challenge is right now, is in April, we had 166 school districts went to referendum. There are 421 school districts in the state of Wisconsin. We already know of another 75 that are going in November, and some school boards are voting this month to make that decision as well. But we're not talking about the first referendum I helped with in Green Bay. It was a long time ago. But I've shared from the community perspective the last 4 referendums for them. And I think it was like $18 million. And I thought, how am I going to be able to ask, people in the community for $18 million? Well, guess what we're asking them for in November?
Yeah, right.
$183 million. And Kaukauna is going to be asking for $200 million, and Madison is going to be asking for $600 million. But guess why they're having to do that? 16 continuous years of not receiving a cost of living increase. Do you know what that 16-year increase would have been if they would have gotten it? An additional $3,000 per child, and school districts would not have had to go to referendums. So, Esme was very clear in a lot of the explanations she gave as far as, and I really embraced some of the things she said of that, how do we have to look at things, and how do we have to verbalize them, and being inclusive in our conversations. And so that's what's really critical, is getting organized, talking to friends and neighbors. Fox Cities Advocates, I don't know if anybody knows the people from Fox Cities Advocates, but they have a table in the exhibit area. I would encourage you to stop by and ask them about their voter's guide, or their guide that they've created. I don't think it's not the right word for voters, but they've created a guide. And they are taking it one at a time, legislator, in the Fox Valley. The Fox Valley is from like Kaukauna, Kimberly, Freedom, Appleton, and it's down to Neenah, and everything kind of in between. And so they are meeting with every individual legislator in each of those areas. And they're having conversations with them, and they're saying, because remember when Esme said, a number of legislators have no idea what they're voting on. I have a quote for you, because I sat in the room with him. Eric Wimberger, state senator for the 30th Senate District, is part of Green Bay, and he was talking to parents and community members in the school district office in Green Bay, which educates 20,000 children every day, is the second largest employer in the city. He's that legislator. He said, I don't really understand school funding, so I'm just going to vote how my colleagues tell me.
Oh, dear.
I mean, I had two friends also in the meeting with me, and they said, we were ready to grab your hands and hold you because we thought you were going to come over the table and choke him. I was that. The man is an attorney, supposedly. He was a judge advocate, you know, for the Army and all of these kinds of things. And so we have to listen. We have to take on the Eric Wimbergers of the world, and we have to be engaged. And so I would encourage you, we didn't get to all the tactics, we have some, but we have a team that will come in and help you with your referendums in your community. Do you have a question?
I just want to say real quick that I just went to our local school board and said, you guys see what's happening with vouchers? A lot of them didn't know anything about it. I got them to write a resolution. We have a little school of less than 500 kids.
She's from Kickapoo, Wisconsin,
And, you know,
she
it
has
was-
done really wonderful things.
You know, and Wisconsin Public Radio covered it. You know, we got written about in the Capital Times. It's a tiny little school, and I think that just shows how it might not mean anything, but it got
It means
the
a lot.
word out.
You know why it means a lot? It means a lot because people are listening now.
Yeah.
And people are saying,
We're like,
wow,
what?
this is happening. And I shared your story last night to somebody, and they said, well, how did she get involved? Was she like committed to public education? And I said, no, she had her headset in and she heard this information and she like responded and did stuff.
Yeah, and I read her book.
And that's the start, yes.
And I have a little flyer I made, if anybody wants. It's just a sort of like kind of simplify some of the things that I think I have just been sharing with my community members, and then resources where you can find more information to make it, because it is so complicated. I don't even
Right.
get it all, but I get enough to see this is crazy.
Yeah.
And people keep saying, that can't be true, that can't be true. And I'm like, yeah, it is. So
Yeah, there's a lot going on, so please stay engaged, get engaged, find a neighbor, find a friend, talk to somebody, because here's what we've kind of talked about, but public education is not partisan. It is political. It is, because they've made it that way. But it's not partisan. So talk to your Republican neighbors, talk to your independent neighbors, talk to your Green Party neighbors, just talk to people. I wore, this is our new shirt, but I wore, somebody has the flowered shirt that looks like this. I wore this into a store the other day. And this guy goes, tell me what you know about public schools. Why are they good? And I said, do you have 3 days, 5 days, a year, you know? So stay involved, stay committed, make good things happen, and we can win this. Because this is our future. This is our lives. And we can do it one neighborhood at a time. And in some of our communities, that's what it's going to take. And when you start building, it gets bigger and bigger. Thanks for being here. Have a great day.